Hear more, speak less. Analyze more, write less. I'm Ashish Sharma.
मेरा नाम Juliana.
My name is Suman Shakya.
Good afternoon, everyone, to all the attendees here. Before starting our panel discussion formally, I would like to welcome everyone to and our panelists especially, while thanking Kusum Entrepreneurship Club, the coordinator Suprimdai and vice coordinator Barsha Baini as well as Kathmandu University School of Management for establishing such a wonderful university that encourages the students to perform these activities. And as well as I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our panelists as well. Now, before we go to the whole introduction, the panel discussion will be divided into majorly two parts. Firstly, we'll be having our introduction and three parts: introduction, followed by our formal questions that's already planned, and then we'll be ending it off with all the questions that you guys might have from the panel discussion, which you can ask through by scanning the QR mentioned here. Now, again, the whole objective of the panel discussion is to get the most out of the experiences. And for that, we need to ensure that there's a smooth communication and smooth flow. So on that note, I'd also like to request all of our audience and participants here to please keep their phone on silent or D&D just so that we don't get disrupted. And on that note, I'd like to request all our panelists one by one to start from their introduction and what their organization is, just so that all the audience here knows about it. Thank you.
My name is Suman Shakya. I'm the founder of Tangent Waves. What we do at Tangent Waves is to work with entrepreneurs and help them grow. So we do consulting, we do training, we work with the businesses, hands-on mentoring, and look at their problems, what they're having, figure out the solutions, and make them grow by also connecting them to investors. So that's what we do. We also work with ecosystem enablers, including organizations where they want to, say, hold a program like a boot camp or an accelerator or incubation. So we get involved in that.
Hi everyone, मेरा नाम Juliana. I am one of the co-founders of Dulua Outdoors, and we are a women-led travel curation platform. We curate different experiences across Nepal's Himalayas and slowly venturing into India. I'm also an alumni of Kusum, so I've kind of been in this space and been in the back end of organizing events. I was here 2013 to 2017, and I think my entrepreneurship journey actually started as a student because I was introduced to Nepal's outdoors, and I found my love for travel while I was studying here. In 2013, when I joined in, I know there's a question around that, but I'll cover that a little bit. So I 2013 joined as a BBA student. Kusum looked very different. So coming back after like almost 8 years, the looks are quite different here. In our semester breaks, we used to go for treks around Nepal. This was mostly me with our MBA students. I've been born and raised in Kathmandu, and I hadn't really gone out of Kathmandu as much, very Kathmandu ko Vyagutta story. But the first time that I went on a trek to go Sekunda is when I was like, this is so my thing. So when I graduated in 2017, I actually fortunately got a grant from Solo Women Travel Challenge by Nepal Tea Travelers to travel across Nepal solo. So after 4 years of going through undergrad business education, and falling in love with traveling, trekking, and everything, I got to actually explore the country beyond the capital. And that experience was so transformative that we wanted to curate a platform like that for more women. So we actually started as a platform that curates experiences led by women for women. And we've now eventually gone into women-led trips. That's our core, but we kind of serve anyone and everyone. Our major market is in Europe, where we curate more slow, immersive community travel that is not just going from place A to B, but really engaging with the community and being exclusively led by women, also trying to close the gender gap in Nepal's outdoors. So that's what Dulua Outdoors is, and yeah, happy to be back here as a guest. I'll be very honest, it feels really weird to be like escorted into these halls of, that we were running around to get in class, so our attendance gets marked and everything, so, and be as on this side of the stage, I guess, but really, really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashish Sharma. I'm the founder of Singapore Beverages. Singapore Beverages is a soft drink manufacturing company that I started after my master's, which I did from University of Wollongong in Dubai. I did my graduation from Kathmandu itself, which was Siam College that our professor was leading, and that is how I became his student, and I'm really proud of that, sir. At Singapore Beverages, we are in direct competition with the multinationals. We manufacture products like Nimbu Pani, fruit gems, naturals, and along with Nepal, we are exporting to 45 countries. We are a born in Nepal company that is trying to rejuvenate the image of Nepalese and Nepalese product across the globe. And our core business is basically highlighting Nepalese quality and showcasing the world what Nepal is capable of. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for... Again, sir?
Is that recording?
Yes.
That's such a Gen Z.
Okay, so obviously all of our panelists here are founders or co-founders, right? And just so that we get to know our audience as well and not just the panelists, how many of us here plan on establishing our own businesses, or how many of us plan about joining our own family business or any business such as that? Okay, so there are people, right? Now, the reason why I asked this is because the most scary thing for young entrepreneurs when asked is their first startup, right? Where they could possibly start from. And where I want to link this with is the importance of first startups is the learnings that you get from the mistakes, right? So my question is to Mr. Suman sir about how, when you first started your startup, right, what do you think was the one thing that you wish you knew and you could go back and change even till this date?
Working for 30 years, you have so many such stories. But to pick one, I would say when I started, I was naive. I was full of myself that I knew the market and I could crack it. What I did not have is the business model. So if I go back, I would definitely work on the business model and then only start on the business.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Now, when we go back to the roots, now obviously one thing that I'll have to ask to Juliana Didi is how a lot of places you've described yourself as a quiet nerd, like in a lot of places right now. What was the turning point, or what experience was it exactly that really brought a shift into you and was like, I need to get into leadership positions or entrepreneurship? What exactly was it?
There's, again, many stories I could share. So, again, when I joined Kusum, I'll come back to that, 2013, Pravina ma'am's not here, but she was just telling me that I was not to brag, I was the topper of the class, I know. But by the end of it, I was so involved in like Kusumko events. I led the events club, and then I eventually got elected as the vice president of the Student Welfare Council back then. I think it was just jumping onto every opportunity that you got while I was in college that shaped me as a leader. To be very specific, 2015 earthquake jun bhako थियो त्यो बेला I was an undergrad student here, and the earthquake happened, and then the blockade happened, and I was leading events club then. And this was like the biggest crisis that could happen for someone who's like in their later teens, an undergrad student leading this club. And we had this annual event that used to happen. I'm not sure if it happens anymore, but Eco Carnival, family. The earthquake happened like the month before Eco Carnival was supposed to happen. So I mean, the state of Kusum, we were studying in tents and like prefabs just outside where parking is now. And यस्तो हुँदै गर्दाखेरि carnival गर्ने त भन्ने जस्तो question भएको थियो त्यो बेला. But then we were like, we've worked so much for it, if nothing else. And we were also doing this एउटा गाउँ हामी बनाऊ भन्ने एउटा project पनि थियो त्यो बेला. आलोक दाइहरूसँग हामीले गरिरहेको थियो. We had actually adopted a village here from where one of our assistant professors was from. So we were working for that, but we decided to change the dates for the carnival, but we did it. And one of the parts of the Eco Carnival was the cycle rally that we used to do. अनि त्यो बेला चाहिँ अब everyone is aware, like earthquake भयो, blockade भयो, petrol थिएन, gas थिएन, supplies थिएन, everyone was kind of hoarding, right? So the cycle rally became quite a viral event, if I had to say, where we had this banner. We collaborated with a lot of different like cycling groups and whatnot, and there was this banner of no petrol, no problem, भनेर. And that was like such a big turning point for that carnival itself, because that brought in attention of people, and that actually brought in footfall at the carnival, despite it being a crisis mode Mabako. We had support from like the development sector with WWF and others, but I think that was, for me, that was like, if at a time of crisis we could pull something like this off. Obviously I had a great team and support and all of that, but it was pretty much in my head. And also that was the first year that the carnival made profits. So that's also an interesting turning point, I think. And I think, yeah, the reassurance or the validation that at such a time, if we could not just pull this off, but pull this off well, I could do more. Then eventually, I think that kick-started sort of the leadership journey for me.
Yes, wonderful, ma'am. Like even like if when I see the audience right now, like I see a lot of juniors as well, like year 1 man, right? And even like year 2, year 3, and my batchmates as well. Like all of them that I see are mostly the ones that are being involved in events, right? Organizing events, being part of those events. And one day this is just an indicator that the events that you're attending does really impact your growth in long term. So it's not just a random event, right? And while I say that, now I like to go towards Dr. Ashish, sir. Like you grew up in a business family, right? If I'm not talking, like you were exposed to business operations from very young. And for instance, me as well, I come from a business family, right? So ever since I grew up, like I kind of knew business is something that I would have done. Perhaps it was because of the environment I grew up in, or maybe partially because my dad kind of like forced it onto me subtly. For your case as well, like was it something you knew, like was business something you knew you'd do from a very young child or young age, or was it something that built up as you pursued your graduation and education?
Well, yes, I do come from a business family, but then we are not generational entrepreneurs. My father was the first generation entrepreneur of his time. So I'm basically the second generation entrepreneur. My grandfather was a Pandit, God bless his soul. Having said that, entrepreneurship was a seed that I'm not sure how it came to me, because even being a part of the family that was into business, I never wanted to get into my family business. So the day I got my senses knocked inside me, I told them that I'm doing nothing with the family business. I'll do something on my own. I'll build my own name. And this is where I feel, the era, or this is where the crux of entrepreneurship that really brings in. Because if there is something that is served to you, plated to you, spoon-fed to you, you might become an entrepreneur for the name of it, but you don't actually get the enigma of the entrepreneurship. To feel that, you actually have built it, you have lived it. I think that is what our co-founders here and founder sir has done that. It has its own charm. And every brick that you lay, every stone that you have put has a soul. And that soul speaks to you. It will not let you sleep in the night. There are dreams that will make you work hard. And mind it, that is the only thing that has no substitute. Hard work. And that is what makes entrepreneurship successful. That is what I feel.
Sir, wonderfully said, right? This is one of the topics that I often have, like, argue with my parents on the same thing, right? Like, it's like I could continue the family business because it's to an extent stabilized so far, but the efforts and the struggles that my parents once did is something that I'll never get to understand. And I feel like as entrepreneurs, it's an experience you need to learn, and not just something that can be heard or realized, right? On that note, another conversation that's often goes in my head is about, okay, I am to start a business or I am to start a venture, but it's very hard for me to do everything at once, because after all, I'm supposed to manage my education as well. So the alternative solution that comes up is find a co-founder who is going to help you throughout the journey. But a lot of businesses, a lot of startups also die down because there's arguments between the co-founders. What is something that, the question is for everyone, what is something that you'd keep in mind when selecting a co-founder for your venture, if you were to start the next venture now?
This is a very good question that even now, when I do consulting to many entrepreneurs, I run into a bunch of co-founders who started very well, were langota years in their childhood, but now they don't talk to each other. I think what we do not have culturally in Nepal is the requirement of documentation. So our business and the money in our business and the money in my pocket, people think it is the same. So once we learn how to separate it and then have documents to demarcate the responsibility and roles, then will become much more easier. For example, I also do trainings on business continuity management, such as if something happens, there's a natural disaster, if your business is part of that natural disaster, how do you become resilient, or how do you rebound from there, right? But people say that, hamroमा त पशुपति र स्वयम्भूनाथ छँदैछ नि, so why do we want, right? But the business has to be prepared for it. So when you start prepared, you need to come up with documents. And in Nepal, like if you go back home and say that, Dad, Mom, I think we need to discuss how your wealth is going to be divided, they're going to kill you, right? But then you never know what could happen to them, right? So that culture of looking at not so good things in the future has prevented us from making documentation. So when you look at founders, nowadays when I do advise people, when they look at founders, is to look at founders where they can talk to each other beyond the glass of water or a glass of whiskey, whatever that might be, and discuss whether they can talk to each other across the board in a boardroom, right? So that the document that is there, which says, okay, this is your responsibility, this is mine, I think that becomes very, very crucial, especially in a family-run environment. And when other people also come from that family, we do not have a lot of documentation. Again, I'm repeating the word documentation because I want to drill that down in everybody's head. Yeah, that's what I feel. You want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. From personal experience, but also from seeing what is around in the ecosystem, having your friends as co-founders, like, think 100 times before you make that decision. For me, I met my co-founders in a more professional setting, and we came together to start the business. We became friends after. We're always business partners first, friends second. And even the decision to come together to start a business together, the big key, like that I was also saying, is not just communicating about the business and to the runnings of it, the documentation, all of that, the boyalu. But because when people come together, conflict you need to have a space and be comfortable enough to bring out the good and the bad and the ugly all on the table and sort this out together. It's more of a value alignment and a work style alignment, but also bringing in complementary skills. For instance, in my business, maybe I'm the person who leads, like who is always like thinking of the money and the business and the sales and the marketing hola, versus the experience curation bit, the product development. I have someone who is an expert in that because that's the expertise that she brings in भन्ने होला. So I think the complementary skills सबैजना एउटै खाले भयो भने पनि downfall भएको देखेको छु मैले चाहिँ. So I think one point to add along with like documentation, being able to communicate is also bringing in complementary skill sets. And in Nepal, running a business, I don't come from a business family. I don't like come from that level of a privilege beyond being born in Kathmandu. But what I realize is network is also really important. So when you're bringing in co-founders, what are the networks that each one of us are bringing in, and how does it complement the business or not? भन्ने कुरा पनि हेर्नुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई.
Well, I'm a kind of person who do not believe in co-founders actually. Okay, but then having said that, I think this is one thing that I would align with Dr. Casey, wherein said that why do a lot of startups fail? Well, we all have a set of qualities, our own way of dealing things, our own behaviors. And I think a lot of startups fail because they don't understand that every business also needs a set of quality. When these qualities do not align, no matter what your passion is, no matter how good your calculations is, it will not work. Like for example, Juliana here is so enthusiastic about traveling, hiking. That is why hiking talks to her, right? Imagine her sitting in a desk job and doing nothing. That's not her cup of tea. So what I feel is, first and foremost, you have to understand if this business is made for you or if you are made for this or not. Having said that, the question comes, do you need a co-founder or do you need a team? Now, I believe in a team. Instead, apart from entrepreneurship, you also develop entrepreneurship. That is where you build in a team and you make that team a part of your organization. Okay. Having said that, why do you need a team? A lot of people might be thinking that, is team necessary? I might be able to do everything. We all have heard of Ramayana. We all know who Lord Ram is, right? He was an avatar of Lord Vishnu, the almighty powerful. He was so powerful that he blessed Lord Hanuman with immortality. But when his wife got abducted, he needed help. If Lord Vishnu needs help, who are we? So what I feel and what I've seen in my life is, either you have a very strong team that is communicating with you, that coheres with your thought, or you have co-founders who might align with them and work together. That depends upon your capabilities, your abilities, and the business that you are working in.
I just want to add something. I just want to offer like not a contrary opinion, but the strength that I see in co-founders and what happened to me is because my co-founders, all three of us, are in very different life stages, and this is. I will come back to gender because again I'm so passionate about that as well. But especially when it comes to women founders, there are certain life stages that take up so much of you that you might have to step back from running a business. The strength that we've had, again, we're a very young company, we're only 4 years old, but in the 4 years, after we started the business is when like my co-founders got married, they now have kids and are raising their children. I'm the youngest in the team, so I'm kind of like, I'm not in that life stage yet. When I was studying abroad, they were handling it, you know. So it's also, if you have the right people, obviously finding the right people is important. For me, it's also that support system that actually came in from having co-founders to make decisions together, and also whenever we need who steps in and steps out भनेर चाहिँ strength भएको थियो मेरो लागि चाहिँ भएको छ अहिले पनि मेरो लागि चाहिँ.
I can add. For now, there is a challenging understanding the difference between a startup and entrepreneurship. And I think that has to be understood by people very well. So the reason why I'm saying entrepreneurship and startup is that when you are starting up, especially with a technological background and you want to scale very fast, you are bootstrapping, you may not have a lot of resources. So you need a team, right, to execute. So you may not have the money to pay the team. So therefore you look at co-founders or have a sweat equity kind of stuff built in, or a ESOP or all that is built in, because you want to work very fast. So in that regard, you need co-founders, right? We want to identify. But as Dr. Ashish also said correctly, you don't want a person just because he or she is your friend. That person has to be passionate about what you are doing and can contribute a different skill set than yours to the company. That is very, very crucial. If 4 chartered accountants get together and form a company, they'll have difficulty in marketing. They might have difficulty in handling the operation. So when you are working on any project, that's why I said that my biggest learning is that you need to have a business model to work on. Just because you are good in something does not guarantee success. So therefore you need either a co-founder or a team member to take it along. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Now, when talking about co-founding and this whole fostering Nepal's entrepreneurial system, this question goes to Mr. Suman, sir. Right, you co-founded the Nepal's Entrepreneurs Hub to foster Nepal's entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? What exactly was the specific gap that really drove you to establish it, right? What exactly was it?
So we started Nepal Entrepreneurs Hub in 2013. So that time, then the word startup was just getting around. People were doing a few talk programs. Entrepreneurs for Nepal was very big. And we were the first to start working on boot camps. So we are till now representative of Techstars of US, where we conduct the 54-hour boot camp where people test their idea to make sure whether this would succeed or not. It is only till an MVP. And in the world, from there, people invest money and then they do. So the reason why we did that was, even when we ran our company, right, or our own ventures, we felt that we were doing our bit, but things were not happening in the ecosystem that was contributing to expanding the business. For example, I am a big fan of OnePlus mobile phones, right? So I carry this. But this cover, I had to buy it from Delhi and have a friend bring it here, right? So you don't get, why? Because it doesn't sell in numbers. Now look at Apple. The iPhones, if you go to any mobile shop, you'll find an iPhone accessory very quickly, right? Because they have invested in the ecosystem. Apple's strength is the ecosystem. It's whether it is an iPod or whether it is a iPhone, it is only one product that fits into the ecosystem. So that ecosystem was missing in Nepal. Like then, we did not have any private equity funds. By law, we do not have a venture capital. We tried to get into crowdfunding also. We talked to the government. When the earthquake took place, we said, why don't we officially bring crowdfunding money to Nepal? Because so many were crowdfunding for Nepal outside, but many of that money did not come in. Why can't we do it officially? So these things have to work in place for something to happen, right? Otherwise, it will not work. Like I started Bitarak.com in the year 2000. The word Bitarak means distribution. Right? So we were specialists in distributing, hoping that the .com world would expand, explode, e-commerce would build in, and then we become the de facto delivery system. So this was in the year 2000. So by 2003, I had 110 people, that time on cycles and motorcycle a bit, without Google Maps, delivering in Kathmandu. We had that capacity to deliver 10,000 articles a day by 2003. However, the other part of the ecosystem did not expand, did not work. Like, unlike right now, where Daraz and so many, like even quick commerce has come in Nepal now, right? Delivery within 10 to 15 minutes. Every e-commerce site needs a delivery mechanism because the last mile delivery is the most difficult. So we identified the pain point, we identified the problem, and we jumped in. But we did not understand the business model. I'll come back to that. We did not understand that there was no ecosystem that was helping. So what we thought was, we have made our mistakes. As we move along, we can at least pass on that learning to the new or wannabes entrepreneurs. Will end up nowhere, right? Because there is a delivery mechanism and people have invested in that, and therefore the product works, right? I hope that helps.
Thank you so much for answering that question, sir, and in very much in depth. Now, my question goes to Juliana Didi. Like you mentioned, like just before the question about how there were struggles to establishing a business in Nepal, especially as a woman-led business, right? And how till this day, like it's been evolved into a woman-focused organization, but still fostering to men as well, right? But what exactly were the challenges that you faced when you were young or when it was in the founding stage?
You want me to use this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. Okay, you can hear me, right? All right. Throwback boy. That's all. This was 2021 when we officially registered the business. But we actually, amongst our co-founders, before we legally registered and did the documentation, we had a sort of test phase of, do we even work well together as a team? Before YouTube promoted podcasts, we had actually started a podcast platform. This was our COVID thing that we did. Dulua Talks, where we were covering stories of women in travel and the outdoors all over the world, with the goal that the more you're exposed to and the more you visibly see and hear representation of women in the travel industry, that other women would also be encouraged to travel and get into it. So we had sort of tested out our dynamics as a team first, while the project essentially was to produce podcasts every 2 weeks. And then we were building our business model while that was happening of, okay, what exactly is the gap in the market? Where do we want to come in? And then when the documentation process had started, I was actually doing my master's in the UK, but my co-founders were here. And the first hurdle is compliance, legal structures. Again, none of us come from business backgrounds. None of us come from, apart from, again, like studying here, to family and other like support. So even to register a business, because none of us were exposed to that, the level of like what is needed. That is actually when we went to platforms like Entrepreneurs for Nepal. We connected with mentors and people who basically knew this stuff and had us like guide. I could say because about women specific issues to there was like any time we would enter the industry, even today when you look at the tourism industry in Nepal, it's massively male dominated. Whenever we recently been getting invited into rooms and we find ourselves being the only women and usually the youngest and the only women in the room. There was this kind of a fear of, like you'll come here, you'll just, like the bias is there. They might not say it out loud, but it took us 4 years to get into decision-making rooms for travel policy, for tourism policy, only after the Gen Z movement, because then they were like, we need to bring in young people. Who are the young people leading in this industry? Then we were brought in. But yeah, in terms of even getting into the industry, there's a lot of barriers. Again, I won't get into the details of it, but there are biases against women in tourism industry, in many other industries as well. So there were these like personal, and that makes you doubt yourself. That makes us like many times legally barriers. So there's that structural issue, there's an industry issue, then there's like these personal barriers of, oh my God, I'm leaving everything to try and do this and see if this works. And Sunny, it's a tested model across different regions, but like Nepal, localized context, there are challenge. So even that personal barrier of, am I doing the right thing? Then like family is just like, why aren't you just doing a job? Why are you like, doing this? Why are you leaving all these like really good offers nationally, internationally, and secure jobs? That's another thing. I'm sure like those who raised hands earlier, my business suru garchu bhanera bhandakeri, they'll probably just be like, just do like a job before money too. And so yeah, so the personal family barriers are open. And the third for us was also financing it, because we were mostly bootstrapping. We did not rely on any investors from the start. We're getting to a phase of inviting we're having conversations with investors, but we were bootstrapping and finance गर्दाखेरि पनि अहिले छ, but त्यो बेला like women entrepreneurs को लागि zero collateral loans भनेर छ अहिले चाहिँ, त्यो बेला थिएन. You need a startup capital, कहाँबाट लिएर आउने त? So that's when we actually got into our connections in the development sector, and in like incubators where there was seed funding for us to like just pitch our idea, get a seed funding, be able to collect that capital to start. So yeah, that I think the biggest things that I think of right now are the more like legal, structural, industry level, entry level challenges. The more personal challenges, I think there are still days today. I was just talking to him earlier that like you don't sleep sometimes, because again tourism is a seasonal business as well, right? But I still need to like pay my employees, still need to like have that cash flow, the running costs and everything. So to question oil so am I doing the right thing? Like again, all of that. So those personal challenges for you, and the more access to finance and capital was a struggle. I wouldn't say that it would, like we obviously overcame it. We were just like, what the hell are we doing? How do we even do this? So capital, legal and structure, and like the more personal things.
Okay, so another question for every one of the panelists, right? Like Wale mentioned about how you started your first venture, bootstrapping go through Bata, right? Now, a lot of us here also, like those who want to start their own foundations or ventures, right? They don't really have access to a lot of money, right? And there's this always doubt if whether cash flow right? Cash flow and there's the business kind of dies down eventually. So start gadakeri specifically, say like naya venture or first venture start gadakeri, is bootstrapping the best way to go, or are there other better financing mechanisms above that, let's say?
This is a $1 million question that comes in again and again. When you're looking at any initiative, be it a startup or an entrepreneurial venture, what I think the individual or the team needs to understand is they need to look forward and see how big they want to make this, right? So if they have come in just to learn, it's fine, because that is also a good objective to have. Because if you are learning and failing fast, it gives you an amazing number of insights to help you work on your second venture. So you don't have to be successful in your first venture. However, but if you're looking a slightly longer and you believe in the problem at hand and you have a solution to that problem, you will have to demonstrate your skin in the game, as investors also call it, right? They will see, like any investor, if you are looking at an idea, would evaluate the business idea in two parts. The first part, 50%, goes to the entrepreneur. It is never the idea. The priority is always to the entrepreneur. Because if the entrepreneur is good, he or she would be able to work on a different idea, maybe pivot, change, and still make it successful. So that is very, very critical. How much of your time and energy have you put in? If you are able to demonstrate that, that might help in the eyes of the investor to showcase that, yes, you are into it. right? You are passionate about it. You are betting your life in it, right? But obviously, others, bankers also, or investors, are going to look at how much money have you used in. And the best way to go is to bootstrapping, because even if you look at Shark Tanks of the world, they will only invest in individuals who have demonstrated that they have sacrificed a lot to come to that point, and does not have a flamboyant lifestyle. They may be able to afford it because of the family, but they know that they are investing their time, monies, and resources into making that product and services successful. I think that angle is very important. If you want to add.
I'll take this. Hello. Well, yes, as we have been discussing, finance actually is 70% of the entire business problem, and the rest is 30. That is how I take it up. And as far as investment is concerned, when anyone who's wanting to invest, he is not investing in the business, like the sir said. He is investing in the person who's leading it. So the DNA of the business and the DNA of the person should match. Having said this, what is more important, what I feel, is again, how much you are passionate about it. Also, how much you actually mean to do it. A lot of times what happens is people, they are running fast, but then they get exhausted. See, business is not a 100-meter race. It's a marathon. And that is where people who want to finance in wants to look into you. Like, I'll give you an example. When I started Singapore Beverages, I did not take any money from my family. I went to banks, pleaded them, gave them my proposal. I got rejected on my face a lot of times. It was the 9th bank that trusted on me and gave me my first loan. So the 8 times that I failed, I realized what my mistakes were, the loopholes that I had to put in, and I came back stronger on the 9th time. That consistency is also needed. What happens is, most of the time we feel that, okay, I had a very nice idea, but then I don't have the money to do it. Okay, let it go. But then if you actually mean it, if you're actually passionate about it, and your DNA matches, you will not let it go. And that is where entrepreneurs are born. That's what I feel.
Just want to add a little bit. I'm just realizing I'm in a panel where like Sumanji has worked for as longer than I've been alive, and then like Ashish has been doing this for much longer as well. But even Malai, especially with I think the people in the audience, my company is very small and very young compared to like what these guys do. And at like in the industry as well, we're starting small but hoping to scale big. When it comes to finance and bootstrapping, so there's no right answer to it. Okay? There's never, like, depending on what you're doing, what your idea is, what your product market fit, all that, you figured all your business model, everything out. How do you finance it? What I want to add to what they've already shared is sources can be different. The source ma focus but you also need to take care of your own finances because so it's very easy for you to sometimes mix like your money with business money, and it's important to segregate that. And I think unless you have a safety net where you can fall back on in case something goes wrong, or because even when you're starting a business, like month one, so you won't start making like massive amounts of money and have return on it. No, year one even, like the first few years, 2-3 years, it takes time to just like stabilize, figure things out. Maybe even if you make profits, you reinvest in the business, you get that scaling, and then bistare honta what I've found in having been a part of different startup communities and entrepreneur communities is that one reason that I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs fail is also because they don't have that personal safety net to begin with. And that happens, one, because you mix your personal and your business money, and two, because passion matra poera pani pugeno. You need to be smart about your finances. So don't mix your like personal and business. When we went in as well, all of us kind of had that personal safety net, at least, like, even if for 2 years down the line, 1 year down the line, we make zero profits, we're in fact like making losses, bani pani, we still have something to keep going because we believe in the idea and we believe that this can scale eventually. But for now, this is what I'm falling back on. The personal safety bhaina bhane pani garo huncha for you to consistently show up for the business and build it, because the moment you're worrying about your own expenses and your own daily stuff, you will not work on investing in your time and energy in building the business as much. So also have that personal safety net and don't mix your personal and business finances as much as possible.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am, and sorry. So now I have one question, right? Like you see, like you go around the market, especially in the international market, what you'll realize often is there's this negative perspective towards products that are made in Nepal, right? Like you usually think of them as, the market usually thinks of them as a bit lower quality products, or the general. But we have a panelist here, Dr. Ashish sir. You were able to, or you've been successful so far at branding Nimbu Pani specifically, or much rather the whole company, as a quality product internationally. And just like you mentioned as well, like you've been able to export in 45 countries so far. I have two questions for you, right? So the first one being, how did you tackle this whole narrative about Nepalese products being relatively bad, and how were you able to export to internationally within 5 years, if I'm not wrong? So
Well, I think that's a really nice question. And everyone who gets to know this, that a company from Nepal in a span of 5 to 7 years is across this many continents, they have this question mark. Well, in order to understand this, you need to understand the roots, how it came from. When I was a student in Dubai, in one of the events, I went down and I introduced myself that I'm Ashish Sharma, I'm from Nepal. So, someone like you, he was like, so, no, you might not be from Nepal. You look like an Indian. I'm like, no, I'm an Nepalese. No, you must be an Arabic. I'm like, no, I'm a Nepali guy. You see my passport. He told me on my face that I come from a land of security guards. Land of? Security guards. Security guards. In a crowd of 720 people from 126 countries, somebody told me on my face that I come from a land of security guards. I took the flag of Nepal, put it in the globe, looked him in his eye, and I told him, one day we will talk again. He was my professor from the university. That ignited a fire. 2022, I got a call from the professor. He lives in Australia. He calls me and he tells me, Sharma, I want you in Dubai. Why? I want to award you with Alumni of Excellence Award. I'm like, why is it, sir? I am drinking your Nimbu Pani in Australia. And I'm proud to say that you are my student. So this fire and realization that who we actually are. I mean, let's face it. We have Mount Everest. We did not build it. We have Gautam Buddha. We did not build it. What have we actually built? So this vacuum needs to be filled. And when I came back to Nepal, I was offered a very wonderful job in Dubai. I was my college topper there. Okay, they offered me a Ferrari right in front of, that was very tempting. I'm like, no, I'm not having this. I'll go back and I will create a difference. So this thing that, if this is who we are and this is what generations have to face, what have we actually contributed to the society? Am I just another shopkeeper who is buying in 10 and selling in 12? Or am I someone who's gonna change the society, contribute to the nation, make it a better one? That is what differentiates a shopkeeper from an entrepreneur. So in my case, when I got that realization, the first thing I decided was I will clean this image. And I'll clean this image from the human strength that God has given to me. I worked hard, realized where we are dominated by the multinationals, cracked the code, the nights that we have sacrificed, the finance that we have sacrificed, the life that we have sacrificed is beyond words. But then that sacrifice was ignited by that fire. Now you see, excellence is no one's monopoly. Why does Nepali product have to be Nepali? Why can't they be Nepali? This journey needs a lot of sacrifice and hard work. And who will do it? People like you, people like her, people like sir, all of them. It is these entrepreneurs who will bring up this change. And I'm just doing my part in it. Every product and every country that I cracked, they had loopholes. You see, we talk about America, we talked about US, we talked about UK, Australian, the entire European continent, Africa. They are not 100%. They might be saturated, but their products have flaws. So I understood those flaws. I gave them ideas. The best thing is, no matter how big you are, no matter how rich or how successful you are, you have two hands and you eat from this mouth. So at ground zero, everything is same. What I did was, if it is an Australian product and if it is a Nepali product, I first brought it down to ground zero. Now compare and tell me which is better. If I am better, why will you not sell it? If I am not, I will come back as better. Today we are in 45 countries, and by the grace of Lord Pasupinath and the entire team of Singapore Beverages, by 2084 will be in 84 countries. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I see the drive in your eyes, like, especially when you were just talking to me. And we're reaching the end portion of our panel discussion. And before that, like, while we finalize all the questions, and as the questions are being sent to me, like, I have one question and just like a very short one, right? What is one advice, like a very basic, necessary panel question? What is one advice you would give to the young entrepreneurs who are starting here? And I want you to like really personalize this to your experience and to the students of Kathmandu University School of Management.
I feel that as an individual, we are no less a person than anybody in the world. Like, we need to have our thinking completely not just changed but transformed, that we are a world citizen. If we can become a world citizen, we can compete with anybody in the world. Do not limit yourself with the boundary of the Nepal's map. I think if you can take that in, that'll be wonderful. And here, Dr. Ashish is a living example.
It's so difficult to think of one thing, no? Entrepreneurship is very glamorized. Really think about if you want to pursue it, but also be realistic and practical about if you do pursue it, what are you working on? Because essentially you're investing at least 10 years of your life just doing this, just building this. Are you ready for that? Don't just think of the glamour of being an entrepreneur, but understand the reality and have that check in your head of, if I really, really, really am so passionate for this, and focus on your why. That's very, very important. But I think I see a lot of, especially like younger people coming into the startup ecosystem and like trying to build something of their own because they see being an entrepreneur, saying that I'm an entrepreneur, as such a glamorous thing. Sure, there is some glamour to it, but there's also a lot of mundane things that actually make it work. Are you really ready for that? Just question yourself multiple times before you decide on choosing that as a career.
There are a lot of things, but then if I have to summarize, there's one thing that one of my gurus told me, which I'd like to share. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Hear more, speak less. Analyze more, write less. That is what he told me. And yes, entrepreneurship is fun, and it needs, it's, as Juliana ma'am told, that it's very glamorized. But then what you have to also understand is, if you are getting into it, and if you fail, everyone fails. Tell me one person who hasn't failed and become a successful entrepreneur. Everyone has. I might be one of the first one to do it. I started at the age of 16 and I failed multiple times. So don't have the fear of failing. Just that when you stand up and you start walking again, make sure you have learned from your mistake. And just go ahead. Things will work.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, we have a few questions. The first question goes to Mr. Suman Shakya, sir. So, the question that's been asked is, you've been focusing, like, this is just the context, like, you've been focusing how much on the, like, business model and everything like that. So, the question is, how did you validate your ideas before investing heavily in it?
So that is exactly what I'm saying, don't do. So unless you validate your ideas, don't invest. So that is the guru mantra that I share everywhere. It's such a common knowledge, but people do not follow it. So what I try to do is to help people understanding the market dynamics, understanding the trends, understanding the market analysis, understanding your customer. Till the time you have a customer persona developed and a positioning, don't even invest a big amount of money. Yes, you can do a bit of research, you can invest on understanding, but don't start a factory before that.
Yes, thank you, sir. Another question for Juliana ma'am. Like, you also mentioned, like, previously about your Duluwa Talks. Yes. Duluwa Talks, your podcast, right? So how has hosting these conversations transformed you so far in your journey?
I think what you started, the first question that you asked me as well, that I don't seem introverted, but I very much am. But when you're doing business and you need to talk to so many people, I think podcasting was one way that helped me develop that skill. Also, when you're running a business, negotiations are something that you really need to master. And when you have experience of holding conversations and talking to, like, different people from around the world, I think that's one skill set that I've developed, and I'm still learning, actually, but that's something that has been transferred to the business as well, in terms of just skills of knowing people, knowing how to talk to them, and also negotiating with people.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Another question is, in Nepal, the business environment is often considered risky and uncertain. You had the opportunity to go abroad for a stable, high-paying job, or even start a business in a more predictable economy. What motivated you to stay and invest your time and capital in Nepal? How do you develop the mindset to embrace that risk? This hasn't been, like, really targeted to any panelists, so.
Well, I'll give you 2 scenarios, okay? We see this building. What do we learn from this building? The physical structure. Maybe the curtains, the screen, that's it. Now imagine that this building is under construction. What do you learn then? You see the amount of cement that is put in, the kind of rods that is used, the kind of construction quality is made. Which scenario teaches you more? Of course, the scenario where the building is under construction. The point is, anything that is under creation will always teach you more. A consolidated economy or a saturated economy, you just become a part of the crowd. But in a developing economy, especially in an economy where there is so much scope of growth, you can actually be a striving force. That is what differentiates Nepal from other economy. A lot of people who are going abroad for foreign employment, jobs. I mean, let me ask them a question. Do you think there's a red carpet there waiting for them for success? They have to do their struggles there, right? And no matter what they struggle in, they might be very high-paid employees, but they cannot be their own bosses. When I passed out from Dubai, I was offered a package of 35 lakhs. Now this is in 2018. 36 lakh, a Ferrari and a bungalow. But because I come from an entrepreneur family, I realized that if he is paying me 36 lakh per month, how much is he making out of me? Right? So foreign employment might have its own charm, its own glamour and everything else there. But then the kind of opportunities that you have in Nepal that you need to see, you won't get anywhere in the world.
Hello.
Talking about building.
Alright, so you might stall that, so but like still. So as we go towards the last end, right? Like I have one final question to all the panelists. It's like all of you guys, like you've reached pretty good position in life, right? These are all positions and like life that a lot of us would look up to, hoping that we would reach that position one day. But a lot of it's very hard to be satisfied, right? Satisfaction is honestly something that's very hard to chase after, and perfectionism. At what point would you guys say like you guys have reached the peak, or at what point would you say you've been successful, or at what point would you be satisfied with yourself?
There's no starting point.
माइक पक्रेर यस्तो गरौँ न है No, for different kind of people, people have different thoughts or feelings about the interpretation of success. And it is so individual in nature. So for me, it was more about growing your own company to growing multiple companies, because I felt that that impact is going to be so much more bigger. Because even as a nation, if we can develop or become more economically independent, more individuals will have more opportunities. So that drives me. And I don't think as entrepreneurs you tend to get satisfied with what you do. Everything is a challenge. Right now I'm kind of keeping a little bit of my time aside to understand what this AI is all about, artificial intelligence, and not artificial insemination, as some people understand. So because we are at this point in time where maybe 30 years ago, computers came into our life, and I still remember boyo dherai nabulnu भन्दैछ. So when computers enter our life, and that was the time when I was graduating. So I graduated in 1995. I'm kind of old guy. But that was the time when computers were entering the corporate world. So everybody was resisting that computers. I remember a time when employees of Nepal Bank went on a strike because they didn't want to move from a typewriter to a computer. So now we hear this story, we laugh about it. But right now, AI is doing like that. We might be using a mobile device, we might be using a laptop, we might be using a lot of things, but if we do not embrace AI, we are dead. So if we do not keep evolving, we are not going to be better. So success is a very relative term. For me, every moment, you live in the moment and you be happy in that moment. That is success. You want to add?
Yeah, very much agree. I don't think there would be like to have that aspiration of like this is the pinnacle of success. Oh my god.
You also don't talk much.
But यो भयो success भयो, if that is an end goal, then त सकिहाल्यो त, त्यसपछि के त, हैन? What keeps me going is more a sense of purpose than success as an end goal. If from what I'm doing, if that fuels that sense of purpose in me, that I'm creating an impact in my community, in my country, a lot of times we are the ambassadors of the country because we host so many people from all over the world. So I think it's more, as long as I feel that sense of purpose coming in, that's great. I think the moment that is lost is when I would question myself. But for me, the pinnacle, the idea of success as the end goal does not exist, to be very honest. I think I'm more chasing growth, chasing to grow myself, be better, but also grow the business. And because we are a business in an industry that is selling, our product is Nepal. We are selling Nepal as a destination. So regardless of the numbers we always hear about यतिजना touristहरू आयो यताउति भयो भन्दा पनि, again, I think it's more fueling that sense of purpose. That's the end goal rather than like a one point of success. And that's something I've seen across successful entrepreneurs, is that you are adapting to change and you're really growing, and the focus on growing, scaling, whatever that may look like. Again, like you said, it's subjective to people, but the sense of purpose is what has remained stagnant, like remained important and at the center for me.
म बढी बोल्दिनँ. I think. So to end my point, I'll say that success for me is not a point. It's a dynamic events that is happening across whatever you're doing. So यहाँबाट के भन्छ सुन्धारा पुग्यो भने म सक्सेसफुल हुन्छु भन्ने सोचै हुँदैन के. That point does not exist. It's one big aim, and that point is always changing.
Thank you so much, everyone. This marks the end of our formal panel discussion. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratefulness to Kathmandu University School of Management, Kusum Entrepreneurship Club, and all of our panelists for sharing their valuable information. Thank you so much.